First of all, thank you so much, Michelle Fatally, for actually getting on the Zoom call with us tonight. My name is Pam Ford of Speak Up and Vote.
And I'm Sherry Williams of Speak Up and Vote.
Yes. So let me just give you a little bit of background as far as how this actually came about. We actually coordinated a voter registration campaign. It was a bipartisan voter registration campaign. And while we were out, we call it on the campaign trail, talking to actual potential voters, trying to get them registered to vote. A lot of them had shared conversation with us regarding the fact that they didn't know who was running. They may recognize a face, but they didn't know who they were, and let alone what they actually did. So we thought it would be appropriate to have small candidate forums for the actual constituents to meet the candidates. So that is how this was, came about. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. So as I previously stated, thank you for joining us on the call. And then your opponent, Mr. Tim Ozinga, we did extend an invite out to him, and we never got a confirmation. Okay. All right. So starting off, can you just introduce yourself, the position that you're running for, and how it sort of came about?
Sure. So, again, I'm Michelle Fadley, and I'm running for the 37th District State Representative seat. And the 37th encompasses most of Frankfort, all of Mokina, almost all of New Lenox, and then the bottom third of Tinley Park, Orland Park, Homer Glen, and Lockport, with the eastern edge of Joliet, which is where I live and have been a homeowner for about 10 years with my husband, 2 dogs, and cat. And I'm running because I have been a passionate community advocate for my entire adult life. It's always been an interest of mine to try to make a difference for people in my community. And most of that in my adult life has been through being involved with the Illinois National Organization for Women, and also co-founding ERA Illinois in 2016 and helping to lead us to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment that would basically put amendment into the Constitution that guarantees that there will be no discrimination based on gender or sex in this country. So I've been just up to all of that for the past 15 years or so. And when I heard that our current representative, Marco McDermott, was stepping down, I thought it would be a great opportunity to run for the seat and see if I can make an even greater difference for my community.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. Now, the next question that I have for you is, in your opinion, what is the biggest concern, for the state of Illinois?
Oh, that's a good one. So I would probably say that what I hear most often about the concerns in Illinois in my district is our budget. And, certainly we have an uphill climb to go with the state budget, but I think that there's a lot there to be hopeful about. Prior to COVID, we were making actually really great headway on our liabilities. The Illinois Comptroller, Susanna Mendoza, had done a lot of reallocating of our debts. And because of that, there was a much lower interest rate for a lot of our liabilities. And so we saw the total expenditures for our liabilities go down. Obviously, COVID has had a big impact on the state's budget as well as everybody's pockets. So it's certainly going to throw new challenges our state's way. I do think that the state will continue to look for federal relief funds for coronavirus. And, we should be looking at things like the fair tax, which is a guaranteed tax cut for the middle class while bringing additional revenue for the state of Illinois.
Wonderful. Okay, so in lieu of that, what would be your plans to help make that happen?
Sure. So I definitely would love to work on we'll see what happens with the fair tax. It's on the ballot this fall, and so that will be somewhat out of my hands. And so we'll see if that passes or not. If it does, then I will certainly want to be at the table when it comes to any additional details regarding that legislation, and making sure that whenever I'm at the table, I'm protecting and strengthening the middle class. That is my ultimate goal when I'm sitting at the table. I think that over the past 20 to 30 years, we've continued to see the middle class get shrunk and increased pressure as our income divide has just grown and grown. In fact, one of the second top concerns of people in my district is affordable health care. And I think that that's really representative in the current income divide, because I read that over the past 20 to 30 years, all of the income gains that the middle class has seen has not gone to our personal pockets. It's instead gone to rising healthcare costs. So it's unsustainable. It's unsustainable for the middle class. It's unsustainable for our seniors that are on fixed incomes and cannot afford any increase year after year after year. And that includes prescription drugs, mental health care, disability services, drug abuse treatment options. We really need to make sure that we're taking care of the middle class and strengthening them.
Great. Sherry?
Okay, well, assuming that you do win and you're in the House, you know that we've had some investigating of the House Speaker, and what exactly are your views on that situation?
Yes, so I don't think there's any question that the state of Illinois needs some strong ethics reform. I have actually a 5-point legislative plan that I'm committed to passing to make sure that Illinois ends up with the strongest ethics reform laws in the country. And that 5-piece plan includes closing the revolving door between politicians and lobbyists by implementing a minimum cooling off period between when they can leave public office and become a lobbyist, ensuring that the Inspector General is entirely independent from the General Assembly. They should not have to go to the General Assembly to ask permission to investigate complaints or issues, increasing transparency and target shadow lobbying. We have a problem where lobbyists just stop registering as lobbyists and basically are still doing those activities. And it's something that's not unique to any one part of our government, because we actually have universal lobbyist registration in Springfield and Chicago, but nowhere else in the state of Illinois. So all of these other cities like Aurora, for example, we don't know what lobbyists are doing there. Also, I want to make sure that anyone convicted of a felony pays back every penny that they took from the taxpayers. And finally, I want to ban red light cameras, because there's been no shown increase in safety from these red light cameras, but they've continued to line politicians' pockets.
Great. I just have one quick question, Sherry, with you, the paying back for the ex-offenders. Do you believe in a second chance for them?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, yes. I'm definitely in favor of a rehabilitative approach to our justice system as a whole. So I don't think that there should be any exceptions carved out necessarily. So I would have to say, if I really believe in that, then that would apply to anyone who is convicted of a felony with taxpayer money as well.
Okay.
Well, and continuing along the lines with the investigation, and as I said, when you get elected, then you would have to vote for speaker, and I understand that there is a challenger for Mr. Madigan. So what do you think? Would you still be voting for him, or how would that go?
You know, it's hard for me to say, because there are so many variables, and so I really hate to put out a hypothetical answer when I don't know what the situation exactly will look like. So what I can say is that without question, no matter who or what the situation is, that I'm going to vote for a speaker that's going to put in these ethics reform laws, because that's what I'm committed to. So that's what I will definitely commit to.
Okay. Pam, I can send it back to you.
Okay, sure. So what are your views on holding quarterly town hall meetings for your constituents? And then especially when it comes to like pressing matters, because there's so many politicians that don't. And that's one of the biggest problems why people don't know who you all are, because a lot of them just don't hold the actual town hall forums. So what's your position on that?
I think that is fantastic, and I would absolutely do that, if not a monthly interactive. Maybe it would be every other month if we get, past and get a vaccine for COVID. Maybe every other month would be in person, and then on the flip month, it would be, a virtual Zoom town hall. But I would definitely be in favor of anything that would keep me connected to the people in my community, which also speaks to my commitment that any legislation that I'm working on, I want to make sure that the stakeholders, in other words, the people impacted by that legislation, has their voices heard on that piece of legislation before I put, my sponsorship or vote in one way or another.
Now, one of the biggest things, and especially with with the constituents that we went after with the voter registration, some of them don't have access to Zoom. They don't have access to all these other variables. So how would you get the information out to those individuals that don't have access,
That's a great question.
to social media?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question, and I would be open to lots of ideas, but I will say, if there's any way that we can be doing in-person town halls by the time I'm, appointed or elected, then certainly I would be interested in doing that. If that's not possible because COVID is still a concern and a safety issue, then I would want to look at, making sure that people have a way to get feedback to me, whether it's, maybe email if they have email that's accessible, or via mail. I could send a newsletter via, USPS, the Postal Service. I would just do whatever I needed to do to make sure that I was touching base with those who don't have regular access.
Yeah, because that's very important, because everybody just don't have access to social media. Most of us do, but a lot of people don't.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So in your opinion, should the Senate move ahead with the confirmation of the Supreme Court nominee, or wait until after the election?
I don't tend to like to comment on federal level issues because I don't really have any power over that myself, and I wouldn't even if I was elected.
What's your personal opinion?
Yeah, so I do think it's a reneging on what was done previously under the Obama administration, where Speaker McConnell really felt strongly that we should not move forward with an appointment during an election year. It does really seem to me like this is being rushed in an extraordinary way, and I find that very concerning, that it's being rushed at lightning speed and in a way that goes back on what was quote unquote the rules of the game under the last administration. So I have a lot of concerns.
Wonderful.
So
go ahead.
Why should people vote for you instead of voting for your opponent?
Yeah, so I think that a few really important reasons. Given my background, I have the proven track record that I'm not in this for myself. I've been a volunteer for 15 plus years, and I am passionate about making a difference for people. I have a concern that my opponent is more interested in lining the pockets of his family, company, and their corporate buddies. I also can tell you that I have actual real plans on how to meet the concerns of the constituents in my district. Very specific legislative pieces that I am committed to working on, and my opponent speaks in generalities and says things like he's going to look into it, and we'll look in this area, and more rah-rah conversations than actual plans. I just think that at the end of the day, people can count on me to represent them with integrity and from a place of real concern for others and how my choices are going to impact them.
Great. Now, one of the biggest things is working across the aisles. And that's one of the biggest problems. I don't care if it's the House, Senate, if it's if it's just the local elections, is working across the aisles. So how do you prepare yourself for that? Because these are great ideas that you have in the hope that you're able to incorporate those ideas. But when you have that, when you have the issue with working across the aisles, how do you think that you can combat that?
Yeah, so the great thing about my community advocacy experience is I have actually worked on legislation that was completely bipartisan. And so when I worked on the Equal Rights Amendment in Illinois, it was not even, one or two across the aisle votes. It was a very bipartisan passing of legislation. So I have the experience in working across the aisle and developed good relationships with people like former Representative Stephen Anderson and Dan Brady. So I think that is a great experience that I can bring to the table, already having a lot of those relationships that cross the aisle and knowing how to do that.
Right. Now, you talked about a lot of different things. What would you say would be your biggest accomplishment so far? Personally and professionally. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I can't not say the Equal Rights Amendment. It was really, it's probably going to continue to be one of the proudest moments of my life. And that's really because I took it on from my mom. My mom marched for the Equal Rights Amendment when she was pregnant with me, and she worked on it most of her life. And at a certain point, maybe about 10 years ago, she said, okay, I'm tired, it's your turn. And it had been at that point 35 years, and I just had a real concern that another generation would go by and my mom might even pass before it was seen as a victory. And to have accomplished that, it just is so fulfilling, and know that I was able to carry my mom and so many other women's torch forward.
Wonderful. Beautiful. So that was a professional one. Personally?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I would say the thing that makes me feel most fulfilled personally is my relationship with my husband. And it was not something that, necessarily was gonna just happen. We had a lot to learn because we met each other. He was 21 and I was 23. So we had a lot to learn about what it looks like to, live as a partnership instead of as, independent individuals. And so we did a lot of work together for that. And the past, we've been married 6 years now, and it's just gotten better every year. And we're just at a place where it feels fulfilling and supportive, regardless of what we're each up to.
Wonderful. All right. Any other questions from you, Sherry?
No, that's it for me.
Okay, Michelle, would you like to share anything else before we end this Zoom call as far as to the constituents out there?
Sure. I'll just add one other thing that I'm really passionate about, which is education. There are many ways that we can increase funding and improve upon our educational system here in Illinois. And I'm passionate about making sure that we have equitable education funding and that we put more into the areas of early learning and our state colleges and universities. We know early learning is one of the most critical times in learning for people. And our state colleges and universities, we've been actually decreasing funding for them every year since 2004. And unfortunately, that burden then ends up falling on the students who want to enroll there. And many times we're seeing an uptick in students leaving the state because it's more affordable to go somewhere out of state than attend our own in-state colleges and universities. So that's, one more priority of mine that I just wanted to share.
Wonderful. Well, again, we thank you for taking time out
Very much.
definitely to talk to the constituents this evening. We wish you the best, and we'll see you on the other side.
Great. Thank you so much.
No problem. Have a wonderful evening, okay? Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.